Welcome to Everyday Linux User. In today's video we're going to do something different. Today I'm going to show you how to install every different version of Ubuntu that there is. And there are 11 of them. When I say all of them, all except one. I'm not going to do the Kylin one. Let's get started. So open a web browser and search for Ubuntu in Google. And if you go to ubuntu.com, and if you go to download, and then go get Ubuntu desktop, and there are two versions here. There's the long-term support, and there is the Ubuntu latest version. So first thing you'll need to do is click on that download link there. That's if you want to install the main Ubuntu operating system. Now what you want to do, if you want to see all the other flavors of Ubuntu there are, if you click on the download here, you'll see down here there's this Ubuntu flavors, and if you click on learn more about Ubuntu flavors, this gives you a list of all the flavors there are. And I'm going to show you how to install all of them today, both to actual hardware and as a virtual machine. Now it's not going to take as long as you think, because most of them follow a similar pattern. So we have Edubuntu. Edubuntu is Ubuntu but with tools specifically for educational purposes, for teachers, for students, for that sort of thing. So it's got lots of toys and educational programs in there. So if you want Edubuntu, you just click on Get Edubuntu. So I'm opening it in a new window, but you just click on the link, and then you can click on the download, and then you can click on Download Edubuntu 2304, and it will start to download. And then there is Kubuntu. Kubuntu is Ubuntu with the KDE Plasma desktop. I'm often critical of the main Ubuntu desktop. I find it slow and cumbersome, and I prefer KDE to GNOME. If you don't like, if you try the main Ubuntu and you find that it's not for you, there's so many different versions of Ubuntu available. One of them will be suitable for your needs, I'm sure. So if you want Kubuntu, that's the KDE desktop. You click on the Get Kubuntu link. Again, I'm opening it in a new window. And you can click on the 64-bit download here, or you can click on the 64-bit download for the long-term support release. I've gone for their latest version for my video. And then we've got Lubuntu. Lubuntu is a lightweight version of Ubuntu using the LXQT desktop environment. So this is designed for older hardware, or it will make newer hardware perform really, really well. The flip side of the coin is that the menus and the systems are a little bit more basic than the ones you get with Ubuntu. But if you want Lubuntu, click on the Get Lubuntu. And when the page loads, you click on Get Lubuntu. And there are two versions available. There's the long-term support, and there's Lunar Lobster, which is the latest version. And you just want to click on the desktop 64-bit version there. And next up we have Ubuntu Budgie. This is Ubuntu with the popular Budgie desktop. It's another one to try out if you don't like the main Ubuntu. So click on that, and this takes you to the Ubuntu Budgie page. And the download's a bit more basic. So if you want the long-term support, you click on the direct download here. If you want the latest version, you have to click on the 2304 tab and click on direct download there, and that will download Ubuntu Budgie. And then we've got Ubuntu Cinnamon. If you've ever seen Linux Mint is basically Ubuntu with a Cinnamon desktop and some Linux Mint tooling on top. This is Ubuntu with the Cinnamon desktop. So worth giving this a go. And to try this out, all you have to do is click on the Get Ubuntu Cinnamon. And all we have to do is click on this download here. And this takes you to SourceForge, and that will download automatically. I'm not going to do it, I've already downloaded it. And then we've got Kylin. Now Kylin is tuned towards Chinese users, and I haven't made this as part of this video. So you can get Kylin, right click, open. When I tried this earlier, it didn't actually work, and it's still not working, and that's the reason why I am not able to do it as part of this video. So moving on, we're going to look at Ubuntu MATE. MATE is Ubuntu with the MATE desktop. MATE is a lightweight desktop. It's probably a halfway house between the main Ubuntu and Lubuntu. So Lubuntu is ultralight. Ubuntu is the heaviest version. MATE is somewhere in between, but more towards the light version. It's configurable desktop. It's easy to use, but it's lighter weight than standard Ubuntu. So definitely good for older or lower powered machines. To get Ubuntu MATE, right click or just click on that Get Ubuntu MATE, and then click on the download link at the top. And there's various versions available. So what you're going to want to do is click on the 64-bit, and then you can choose between the long-term support or the Lunar Lobster, which is the latest version. Next we have Ubuntu Studio. Ubuntu Studio is Ubuntu but with tools for artists or people who produce media. So it's going to have tools like Blender, Critter, GIMP. It's going to have Kdenlive and things like that. To get Ubuntu Studio, click on this link. Click on the download at the top. And there's two versions available. You can either go for the long-term support, click the direct download here, or the latest version, click on this download here. Then we have Ubuntu Unity. So Unity was the default desktop of Ubuntu for many years, but now they use GNOME as the main desktop. But here's a Unity version if you prefer Unity. If you want that, click on this Get Ubuntu Unity here, and then click on this download link. And again, there's multiple versions available. To get the latest one, just download from cdimage.ubuntu.com. But if you want the long-term support, you have to download here, or and you can go for an older long-term support. I'm not sure why you would do that. And then finally, we have Xubuntu, and this is Ubuntu with the XFCE desktop. And this is another lightweight one, very similar to MATE. Ubuntu with the XFCE desktop. Again, click on this link, and then there's click on the download link here, and you can click on the mirror that's closest to you, and then you can click on the download here. Now you may notice that there's no 2304 there. What we can do is go back to here and click on this download link here if you want 2304, and then you see 2304 is there. So to create the USB drive, you need to go to etcher.io. This is a bit of software that will burn the ISO image onto a USB drive. This is assuming you want to install a version of Ubuntu actually to a machine. So if you want to do that, you'll need a blank USB drive, or a USB drive that hasn't got any data that you want to keep. So you download Etcher, and you download the version for your operating system. So if you're using Windows, you download this one. If you're using Linux, you download this one. You close the Explorer window, you open a File Explorer, you go to Downloads, you click on Baleno Etcher. You see I've done it multiple times today. You click I agree. You can minimize this. And then you click once Etcher starts. If it doesn't start automatically, double click on the icon on the desktop, but then click Flash from File. And from your downloads folder, you pick the version of Ubuntu you've downloaded. In my case, I've downloaded every single one. So for this example, I'm going to choose Cinnamon. Then you select your target, in this case the PNY transformer. Click select on there, and then you click flash. When the message appears asking if you're sure, click yes, and then the ISO image will start to flash to the USB drive. If you're using Linux, do the same thing. Etcher.io, click download Etcher, choose the app image, close the browser, and then you need to go to a file explorer, go to your downloads folder, and where the app image is, you need to right click, choose properties, go to the permissions tab, and then allow this file to run as a program. Click close, double click. We can now close this, and then it's the same as before. You flash from file, choose the version of Linux you want to install, in this case Cinnamon, select your target, choose your USB drive, and then click flash. Enter your password, and the version of Ubuntu you've chosen will now flash to the USB drive. So whether you're using Windows or Linux and you've decided to create a USB drive, you should now see this screen. And what you want to do if you're installing Linux to your machine, i.e. not using a virtual machine as I've just shown you, what you do is you reboot your computer, leave the USB drive in, and you press the relevant function key to bring up the boot menu. Now this differs from machine to machine. On mine it's F7, on yours it might be something different. To find out which one it is, go onto Google, type in your manufacturer of your PC and say it's HP, say HP and boot key, and Google will be able to tell you which key is likely to be the boot key. So when you reboot your computer, press the relevant function key and it will bring up a menu, and in that menu it will have all the drives on your machine that you can boot from, and one of them will be the USB drive. Select that USB drive and press return. If you would prefer to run Ubuntu as a virtual machine within Windows, you need to open a browser and type in Oracle VirtualBox. Click on the link, so it's virtualbox.org, and there's a big download button. Click on that, and then click on Windows hosts. If you are using Linux and you want to use VirtualBox on Linux, then you'll need to use your package manager for the version of Linux you're using to download and install VirtualBox. Close the browser and open a file explorer. Double click on the VirtualBox download, accept the message. You'll see this preparing to install. Minimize the file explorer. Click next. Click next. Yes. Yes. Install. When it's finished, you can either start it by leaving the check in the box, or you can double click on the icon on the desktop. To create a virtual machine, click on New, type in the word Ubuntu, choose the ISO image. So in this case, click on Other, go to your Downloads folder, choose the one you want to install. So I'll say Lubuntu, and then click Next. Then it asks how much memory you want to give. I'm going to say 2 gigabytes and how many CPUs you want to give. So in this case, I'm going to just say 1, but you can use more than 1. And then click Next. And then how much space you want to give as a virtual hard drive. I'm going to say 15. Really 25 or 30 is the minimum you should go for, but this is just an example. And then click Next, and then click Finish. Now when you click Start, it will boot into your virtual machine, and we'll go through that shortly. If you are using Linux, start VirtualBox. It's slightly different depending on the version. Click on New, type in Ubuntu, choose where you want to put it, set the memory. So in this case, I'll go 4096. Click Create. Set the hard drive size, so 25. Click Create. And then you want to go to Settings. And under System, you want to go to the Processor tab, and then you can increase the number of CPUs that you want to use. Always make sure it's in the green, and then you can click the Start button. It differs for Linux to Windows. In Windows, you chose the file that you want to load at the point of creating the virtual machine, but for Linux, you choose it now. So for Linux, you would click here, and then you click Add, and then you choose the version of Linux you want to install. So say I want to install Ubuntu, I choose that, and then I click Start. And now we're all at the same point. Now, it doesn't matter if you're booting off a USB drive or you're running from a virtual machine, you should see a screen like the one above. And it doesn't matter which version of Ubuntu you're using, you should see try or install Ubuntu, Ubuntu Studio, Kubuntu, Lubuntu, Xubuntu, etc. Each of the installers are slightly different. Many of them follow the same theme, but essentially what you need to do is choose your installation language and then choose whether to install or try Ubuntu. In some cases, you have to double click on the installer on the desktop, and then it will ask you to choose your language. In some cases, it will just ask you to choose your language and then try or install on the same screen. And either way, choose your language and then choose to install. If you're installing it to an actual PC and not a virtual machine, remember to back up everything you've got first. This will overwrite everything else on your machine. With the exception of Lubuntu, all of the installers will now ask you to choose your keyboard layout. Basically, you just have to choose the language of your keyboard and then the layout of the keyboard. Lubuntu actually asks you to choose where you are in the world, so basically just pick where you are in the world and then click Next, and then you'll get to choose the keyboard layout for Lubuntu. Ubuntu Studio also works the same way as Lubuntu. You have to choose the country where you are first and then choose your keyboard layout. If you're installing the main Ubuntu, you may be asked to set up your internet connection at this point. This appears to be for Ubuntu only, but it might appear for other versions of Ubuntu, such as Kubuntu as well. It doesn't happen on this one because I've been installing using VirtualBox. Every distribution other than Lubuntu and Ubuntu Studio will now ask you about updates and other software, and this determines whether you want to do a normal installation or a minimal installation. So a normal installation includes web browsers and other utilities. Minimal doesn't include anything other than basic utilities. You can also choose to download updates whilst installing the versions of Ubuntu that you've chosen, and you can also choose to install third-party software such as graphics and Wi-Fi drivers and media formats. All the installers should now be at the disk setup screen. Most of them follow the same format. You should see erase disk, install alongside another operating system if you have an operating system on your machine or something else. If you want it to be the only operating system, choose the first option to erase disk and then click continue. This is the point of no return. You should make sure you've backed up everything else first because everything will be wiped. For Kubuntu, Lubuntu and Ubuntu Studio, they're set up slightly different. Lubuntu and Ubuntu Studio have erased disk still, but Kubuntu has entire disk or entire disk guided or entire disk guided something else. What you want to do is just choose the entire disk to install it. Some of the Ubuntu flavours will ask you to write changes to disk. Click yes when asked to do that. And all of the distributions now, all of the Ubuntus will show a map asking you to pick your time zone, all except for Lubuntu and Ubuntu Studio, because you already selected your time zone previously. The final stage for all of the Ubuntu flavours is to set up a user. The order of the screen might be different, but essentially you have to enter your name, give your computer a name, pick a username, choose a password and repeat it, and then you can choose whether to log in automatically or you require a password to log in. There is also an Active Directory feature, but that's not part of this tutorial. And then once you finish, you can click continue and the installer should now start installing the version of Ubuntu that you've chosen. You may need to click install again because it might show a summary screen for some of the distributions. But yes, the system should now install. It can take 15 to 20 minutes depending on your hardware and depends on whether you're installing. The main Ubuntu also asks you to choose whether you want light or dark mode. Eventually, after 15 or 20 minutes or so, your version of Ubuntu should be installed. All you need to do now is hit the Restart Now button. And when the computer restarts, it'll ask you to remove the installation media. So if you're using a USB drive, pull the USB drive out. If you're using a virtual machine, it will work automatically. You don't actually have to do anything. Press return, and then you should boot into the login screen of your version of Ubuntu. With the exception of Cinnamon, all the Ubuntu should boot to the login screen. With Cinnamon, you have to choose which option you want from the grub menu first. Just select the first option and it will boot to the login screen. Enter your password and you should boot into your system. If you install to your actual machine, then you should now be able to use the version of Ubuntu that you've installed. For virtual machines, you'll need to install the guest editions to enable full screen mode. From the VirtualBox Devices menu, select the Insert Guest Editions CD image. If you haven't got the latest guest image, it will ask whether you want to download it. Select yes and follow the instructions. When the VirtualBox Guest Editions image is loaded, it will, for some distributions, it will ask whether you want to auto-run the guest editions. And in others, you'll have to open a terminal window and then type in the following command. So right-click on the file manager where it's got the VirtualBox guest editions and choose Open Terminal. And then you want to type sudo space dot / vbox Linux editions .run. Make sure the case is correct as shown on the screen. Ignore any errors that appear and let the process run, and when it's finished it will say close window. At this point you can close the window and reboot your computer. The Ubuntu versions that will require you to open a terminal type in the command are Lubuntu, Xubuntu, Kubuntu and Ubuntu Studio. As far as I'm aware, the rest of the distributions should actually auto-run and install the guest editions. Once you have installed the guest editions, you will need to reboot your computer. And when you reboot your computer, you can then log in. And once you've logged in, if you press the right control key and F, it will turn it into full screen mode and everything should work fine. I have noticed with MATE that the screen doesn't necessarily refresh very well, but if you do it a couple of times, then it will snap into place. And that's it. That's the end of the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.